Okay, today we are going to do 11.6, and I'm getting my calculator out, sorry. Sine, cosine, and tangent ratios. Now we are just going to touch the surface of what sine, cosine, and tangent are. When you do geometry and algebra 2 and stuff like that, you'll really get into it more. But trigonometry is just a triangle measure. It's just measuring a triangle. Now when we use these ratios, these trig ratios, it always has to be with a right angle. A right triangle. Okay, you can't use it with any triangle. It has to be a right triangle. Okay, so the important part here, oops, and this should say 2, not tau. Okay, 2 sides of a right triangle. Okay, so if we have, the biggest thing we want to know here is you have to know that across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. Okay, and if we are dealing with angle X, then you need to know that right across from angle X is opposite, and the side next to angle X, or the leg next to angle X, is adjacent. Now if we were, and we'll do an example of this, but if we were dealing with Z, then the hypotenuse is always the same, but opposite would be over here, adjacent would be here. Okay? Alright, so let's see. In this one, we wouldn't have to figure out because it's already 90. We already know what it is. We don't have to try to figure that out. Okay? So some trig ratios are sine, which we just normally abbreviate for SIN, is opposite sine of an angle. I just put this little angle sign. So sine of, you could say angle A or angle 1 or whatever, is equal to the opposite length over the hypotenuse length. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite. That does not look like it's spelled right. Opposite over adjacent. Okay, so a cute little, you've probably heard it before, but it's called SOHCAHTOA. So this reminds you that sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. So SOHCAHTOA, it just helps you kind of remember that. Okay. Okay, so if we're looking on here, it says find the sine, cosine, and tangent of angle X. Okay, so if we, let's just say this was a 3, 4, even those ones bigger, 3, 4, 5 angle, triangle, okay? Now, if you were just given 2 sides, you could do Pythagorean theorem to come up with the third, but let's just say these are our lengths, okay? And so we're trying to find the angle of X. We're trying to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of X. So how you would write this is you would say sine of X is equal to, so remember sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so it would be 3/5. And you would just leave it as a fraction right there. That is fine. Cosine of X would be adjacent, so remember adjacent is right next to it, and it's over hypotenuse, which is right there. Tangent of X, remember, is opposite over adjacent, 3/4. Okay? All right. Now, if you're using the same thing, I'm going to change my color here. I'll do green. If we're doing the same thing for angle Y, oh, let's not do angle Y. Let's do Z. That doesn't help us any. Let's do Z. Angle Z. Okay, I wrote these wrong. Angle Z. So the sine of angle Z would be opposite, again, over hypotenuse. So 4/5. Cosine of Z would be adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 3/5. And then tangent of Z would be opposite over adjacent, so 4/3. Okay, and that's all you have to do on that. You're just kind of learning how to set them up. Okay. Now on here, you're going to use your calculator. Okay, and you first have to make sure, go to mode, and make sure you're in degrees and not radians in your mode, which mine was actually in radians. So you're going to just hit the sign button, and then you put 10, and you should end up with 0.17, let's just do 36. If you don't get that, then make sure, then check your mode. Okay, the other one, you would just hit tangent 53, and you should get 1.327. All right, and that's it. You're just putting those in your calculator. Okay. Now in number 5, it says, so you're going to have some word problems. You got to figure out what it's trying to ask you. The angle that a water ski ramp forms with the surface of the water. So here's our water. Here's our ramp. Okay, is 20 degrees. So, you know, we're dealing with a right triangle. We're assuming that that's our right triangle. This right here is your 20 degrees because it says, and that's the hardest thing, and you have to get that right. It says the water skiing ramp forms with the surface of the water. So this is the ramp, here's the water down here. And the ramp rises 6 feet, so that's right here. And if you didn't know that, it says approximately how long is the ramp. Well, if this is our ramp, then we know that's what it's asking. Okay, so from there, we need to figure out, okay, how in the world are we going to figure this out? Well, we have to think about what we're given. Okay, I'm going to change colors again. This is our only degree, this is our only angle we're given, okay? And we're given the opposite of that angle and the hypotenuse of that angle. So you have to decide, am I going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? Well, opposite and hypotenuse is sine. So sine of 20 degrees, okay, because since we know it, we don't put x, y, z like we did before, equals opposite over hypotenuse. Okay, 6 over x. Okay, so this one we gotta work a little bit at. Okay, and I'm wondering, no, none of the other ones are like that. So we gotta work a little bit at this. So we need to get x all by itself, but it's down here at the bottom. Okay, so we're actually gonna solve for x. So we multiply both sides by x. So we have x sine of 20 degrees equals 6. Okay, but we want x by itself. So we divide by sine of 20 degrees. Okay, so in your calculator, you're going to put 6 divided by sine 20. And you should get 17.54, and I don't know what we're dealing with, feet. Okay, so that means that that ramp is about 17.5 feet. Okay, well, yeah, 17.5, 17.5 feet. Okay, so now what if, I'm going to try to just come up with one, because I think we need another example of that. What if we had, so just add this to your notes. What if we had a triangle? Here's our right angle. And let's say this is 31 degrees. And we are given this to be 12. And we want to know what this is right here. Okay, so if we have this, what are we given and what do we need to find out? So we're given this angle right here, and we're given the hypotenuse, and we're given adjacent. So we know we have to use what? Cosine. Cosine of 31 equals x over 12 because it's adjacent over hypotenuse. Now this one's a little easier. You don't have to do 2 steps. Okay, so now we want x by itself, so we're going to multiply both sides by 12. Those will cancel, so in your calculator, you just need to do 12 cosine, 31. Make sure you're in degrees. So 10.29 would equal x. Okay, you need to make sure, since this is the hypotenuse, that definitely has to be smaller. Okay. Now, what if we were given, well, let's do one more. Sorry, I felt like we needed more practice than I had on there. Let's say this was 54 degrees and this was 20, and this was x. Okay, so now what info are we given? We're given this angle right here. So, and we're given the opposite and the adjacent of this angle. So tangent of 54 equals 20 over x, opposite over adjacent. Okay, now if these had been switched, then it would have been x over 20. So this is another one where you got to multiply by 20. As long as you remember you're going to end up dividing, that's fine. So we have x tangent 54 equals 20. Divide by tangent of 54. Divide by tangent of 54. I just made these up, so we'll see how they turn out. 20 divided by tangent 54. So 14.53. And, you know, whatever we're dealing with, feet or whatever, equals x. Okay? So hopefully that'll give you a little bit more practice there. I can always answer questions too. I think I have a little comic.